if I had a business, would you be my secretary person, like the bouncer?
The gatekeeper to your company?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Am I just the gatekeeper, or do I get paid a lot of money for this job? Do I have more responsibilities?
Well, Danielle, we will pay you commensurate with your responsibilities. If you want more responsibilities, we can discuss moving you more into a managerial role overseeing the steno pool.
You know how I feel about managerial roles.
Yes, but this time you won't be working under just absolutely ludicrous people.
Yeah, I'll be working under you. Is that
I'm not
better?
ludicrous, Danielle. I'm amazing.
You actually probably would be a good boss. That's fair.
I would pay you very well, Danielle. You know I would.
I would be just as brutally honest as I am now.
Yeah, and so nothing would change.
It'd be exactly the same.
Only I'd be paying you to give me a hard time. And maybe a second thought, this is a bad deal for me.
It's a great idea. Let's do it.
All right. Never mind. Let's
paid to do the relationship we already have.
Nope. That's a bad idea. I suddenly regret all my choices.
Too late. It's on record. Literally.
Yeah, but I don't have a business, so screw you.
I accept it officially.
I'll pay you 10% of my gross profits.
Okay.
Yeah. So enjoy all that zero. Hello, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Sam.
I'm Danielle.
And this is a podcast about sharing your weird media finds with your friends who usually don't know what you're talking about. But Danielle, I expect you'll know exactly what I'm talking about today. In fact,
sure.
I want you to tell me what I'm talking about today.
You're talking about the book Hyperion by...
That's correct.
Simmons?
Dan Simmons. Very
Simmons.
good.
There we go.
Yeah. The 1989 first installment in this epic space opera quadrilogy.
Yeah, that was a hard thing to pull from my memory.
Well, Danielle, I hope your memory is lubed up now because we're going to start with the summary of what happened last time in the book Hyperion 2 whole weeks ago.
Okay, so...
Have you been thinking about it since then?
No, I have not
keep
remotely
it fresh in
thought
your
about
mind?
it.
I didn't think so.
Gone out of my way to not think about it. So, it opens with this person, the council, right?
The consul,
Sure,
yeah.
him. And on a spaceship, and there are lots of creatures and small-brained things out in the ether around his ship. And then he gets a little thingy.
Well, he's playing piano.
Okay, whatever. That's not relevant to the plot.
It isn't, but it's funny.
And there's a message that comes through on the fat line squirt.
Yeah, there's a fat line squirt.
Stupid.
So the fat line is the technology. The squirt is the message.
Okay, whatever. So that a squirt comes through.
It's such a gross. All right. I want to say, Danielle, I have done my best to pull every nonsense sci-fi term into today's summary. It's going to be a big ratio of nonsense to actual words.
Fabulous. Okay, well, we already got a good... Listeners, go listen to the first one if you haven't already, because there's plenty of nonsense in that one, too.
It's the best.
Clearly, we're 30 seconds into a summary, and there's already been 12 different terms. So, fat line squirt. There's a squirt. He listens to it. It's some important person.
The CEO of the...
Something.
No,
something.
you know the name of this organization.
Clearly do not, Sam.
It was the word you had the most trouble pronouncing last time.
And you expect that I would remember it now. Homogeny?
Hegemony. It's
Homogeny is a
Nina
different word.
Gladstone, the CEO of the Hegemony.
Okay, yeah, that Mina from the Hegemony. And she tells him that there's the Shrike, which is some kind of evil creature being thing. Maybe
she doesn't
evil.
tell him about that.
Okay, she doesn't tell him about the Shrike? Where did we learn about
he
the
knows
Shrike?
about that. It's common knowledge.
Okay, well, the time tunnels,
The time?
space,
Oh my gosh.
time.
Wow, this is more painful than I thought it would be. The time tombs.
The time tombs. Oh my gosh. I didn't even remember that at all. I really thought they were time tunnels. And I thought they were time tunnels because they go back in time. And that's just weird.
Kind of.
Sort of. Anyway, the time tombs are opening on Hyperion. Yes?
Yeah, you got that one.
Okay. They're opening on Hyperion. And apparently this is a big deal. And it's going to potentially create a lot of havoc. So they're sending 7 pilgrims into Hyperion to kind of see what's going on and help evacuate. Is that correct?
No.
Oh.
Well,
They are evacuating, though. And
there
might be people there when they get there.
Yeah, so there is an evacuation happening, and they're sending the pilgrims along with the evacuation force. They're just sort of hitching a ride.
Okay, sure.
And the pilgrims are going as part of the Shrike Church, which is sponsoring the pilgrimage.
Oh, that's right, it's a church. It's weird.
The Shrike Church, very important. We're going to talk a lot about the Shrike Church today.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about more about the Shrike Church today.
Okay, well, there's a Shrike Church, blah, blah, blah. There's some time issues where, like, you travel only 5 weeks, but, like, 3 years have passed, time debt, blah, blah, blah. They're on the ship. There's a giant ship that's a tree.
Yeah, go ahead. You skipped one thing. You mentioned there are other people who might be there. Do you remember who those other people are?
Lots of birds, like the Shrike.
Nope, the Ousters.
But all the characters are named after birds.
Right, okay, sure. That's your call, not mine.
Pretty sure they're all named after birds. And
listeners, write in, get in the comments, tell us they're all birds.
So they're on the big tree ship, traveling along.
You remember the tree ship?
Do I remember the name of the tree ship? Is that what she said?
Yeah.
No, tree ship.
It's the world tree from Norse mythology.
Yeah, no, that was never going to be in my brain, Sam. You're lucky you remembered there was a tree ship.
Yggdrasil.
Oh, sure. Yggdrasil, the tree ship. It was actually Yggdrasil. I should remember that because it's in another fantasy book that I actually like.
It's also Norse mythology, so you should just know it.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know my mythology,
history.
Sam.
Right, of course.
I did not do super well in that 7th grade class. 7th grade was a hard year. So traveling in a tree ship, they are sleeping, they wake up, and they decide to share their stories to get to know each other better instead of party games, which boo.
That is fairly accurate. A couple of things I want to point out. Hetmasting, the true voice of the tree, because that's a great title.
Yes,
I just love that title. Yes. Do you remember any of the names of any of the other pilgrims?
Absolutely.
After they wake up from fugue, cryogenic fugue?
No.
Nor the names.
Not a single one.
Well, I already gave you Hetmasting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered that.
There's Bron Lamia.
Nope. We haven't even talked about him.
Her.
Them. They were like, It's not exactly a
There's Martin Salinas.
Nope.
There's Saul Weintraub.
Sorta.
With the baby. He is with the infant.
Yeah, the baby. I don't understand why it's on the ship yet, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Oh, you will, Danielle. There's a story about that baby.
I'm sure there is.
There's Father Leonard Hoyt.
Oh, yeah.
The person who's telling the story you're about to get to.
I didn't remember the story. I remember the story. That there was one, at least.
There's Colonel Fedmahn Kassad.
That was the one I couldn't remember. It was in my brain because that was the one I thought was probably a bird, too.
Yeah, well, it's his story today, Danielle. So
good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because it's the war, space war. Time, space war.
The War Lovers.
Yeah, that one. The Time, space war.
Yeah, that one. I think, did I cover them all?
I don't know, Sam. I wasn't counting.
Probably. And the console, of course. But anyway, continue. Tell me, and please don't make it 40 minutes. Tell me.
I'm not going to. I'll summarize quickly.
Father Hoyt's story.
Okay. So, whatever his name is, the father. Hoyt.
Hoyt. H-O-Y-T.
Right. Hoyt. He goes to find his mentor who disappears. Yeah?
Yeah. So his mentor, Father Paul Duray.
Yeah, I actually kind of remembered that one. Probably because we spent so much time on the stupid Tesla trees.
You're still salty about them trees.
A little bit. So, Paul Duray disappears. Hoyt goes after him, ends up finding him in the end, spoiler. But prior to that, we have to hear all about Duray's story, which is that he is moving around Hyperion, and he somehow, I don't remember why, comes across these people who are 70 people.
Okay. I mean, couple of things. One, he was exiled to Hyperion by the church.
Oh, that's right.
For falsifying archaeological data.
Yes, yep. Stupid. Whatever.
And so his exile is to go do anthropological studies on the Bakura, the lost tribe from a crass siege ship from several hundred years ago on Hyperion.
Right. And the thing he was lying about was finding Christian ruins prior to the start of Christianity or whatever.
Prior to humans venturing into space. So a non-human Christian civilization.
Yeah, that thing. And so he stumbles into this group of 70 people who are all kind of weird and a little not fully there. And he kind of gets involved with them. And they almost kill him, but they don't because he has a crucifix on his body, but they kill his partner that he's with, right?
Yes.
But they are before that, aren't they, in the Tesla trees? This is how he gets stuck with them. Right. They're in the forest with the Tesla trees. There's a big lightning storm because Tesla trees create lightning, and then they destroy the forest around them.
They attract lightning, and then they re-emit it, is the best of my understanding of how these things work.
And they take out the forest, but somehow they don't die with the fire that they create. So whatever.
It's not like a complete destruction. destruction. It's just like, fire is part of this forest's natural life cycle.
It is. And little phoenix flowers come up or something.
Yeah, they're phoenix. Good.
Exactly. So his partner that he's with dies, but he survives because he has a crucifix, like a cross on around his necklace, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's taken with this group of 70 people, things, and...
They're people, Danielle.
They're people. And they're very, like, odd and very, like, I don't know, they're really obsessed with their crucifixes, Sam.
Well, they're very odd. They're not obsessed with the crucifixes. Well, they are a little bit, but they're obsessed with the 70.
Right, that there's 70 of them.
That's very important to them, and that he was spared because he has a crucifix and therefore cannot die the true death.
Right. And everything's kind of circular logic with them.
Yeah, they have very low intelligence, it seems.
Right. At one point, they go on this, like, they go to this place that he's not allowed to go multiple times. And then they finally...
Every day.
Right. And then at some point, they all, like, go on a hunt or something. They disappear for a while. And so he decides he's going to go see what they're going to. And he goes down there, and it's like a giant churchy cavern thing with crucifixes all over the wall. But they're not real crucifixes. They're kind of like coral or something that grow into the wall below. How is that not quite
right?
That was 100% correct, Sam.
Well, no, that's not what he finds. He finds a giant cathedral.
Sure.
With a giant cross inside and like fake stained glass windows that aren't really stained glass windows.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then he leaves. Like, that's all he finds on his first trip down there.
Okay, but at some point he finds the weird cavern with all the crucifixes.
Well, he doesn't find it. He goes back up. One day he's bathing shirtless and they see that he doesn't have a crucifix on his body.
Right, because they all have these weird crucifixes that, like, their skin grows over and it's, like, on their bodies.
Yeah, we don't learn about that later until they decide, instead of killing him, to take him down to the bottom of this valley into a cave.
So we can go into the maze runner.
The labyrinth.
Labyrinth to meet the Shrike.
And that's where the crucifixes on the wall are.
Yeah, so there's crucifixes on the wall. It's super creepy.
Or cruciforms, I guess.
Cruciforms. And then he was almost killed at some point, and then he's like, no, I want to be one with the cruciform. And so they put a cruciform
Well, that was at the very beginning before they took him down there. That's how they convinced him to bring him down to say, I want to be one with the cruciform. And so they take him down there.
They put a cruciform on his body, one of the weird coral things, and his skin grows around it, and he can't get it off his body.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know what the cruciform does?
It takes over his body. It's a parasite.
It is a parasite, but do you know what the effects of the cruciform are?
He can't leave the area. He's stuck.
Can't leave the area. Yep.
If he dies, it regrows him.
Yeah, so like anyone who has this cruciform, if they die, it like melts their body down to component parts and rebuilds them.
And that's where all these 70 people came from. These are the 70 people that originally disappeared off the ship a zillion years ago. And it's just the same 70 people rebuilt over and over and over and over again with these cruciform. Super creepy. Woo!
Yeah, and so the rebuilding process is not perfect. And so after every reincarnation cycle, they lose a little bit of their, like, it's like not perfectly a copy of a copy. So they become less and less human.
Right. So that's why they're so odd. And at some point, he's like, okay, I got to get out of here. And he hitches out and...
That's the end of his journals. He leaves for one last time into the fire forests.
Right. But Hoyt finds him later in the fire forest strapped to a Tesla tree because he's trying to, like, lighten himself.
Not just strapped. Crucified.
Oh, crucified. Okay, fine. Crucified to a Tesla tree.
He crucified
because
himself
he's trying to
tree.
get the cruciform, like, he's trying to die, or at least get the cruciform off his body.
Because the cruciform doesn't like pain.
Right. So he's hoping it might, like, fall off, but instead he just, like, roasted himself to death.
For 6 years.
Yes. For a long time. And that's the end of his story, Hoyt's story. Kind of. Like, it's the end of Hoyt's story that he tells to the crowd. But then later, he's in his room, and then what's-his-face comes in.
The consul.
The consul
doesn't have a name, just the consul.
The consul comes in and is like, tell me the rest of the story. And he's writhing in pain on the grass floor of the tree ship.
Yeah.
And it turns out he has a cruciform on him. So he took his Duré's cruciform, theoretically, and put it on his own body.
Right. So, well, he has two cruciforms. So when he got there, the Bakura put a cruciform on him. Otherwise, they would have killed him.
How can he leave?
Because of the most important thing in the story you missed, ultramorphine.
Oh, that's right. Stupid super ultramorphine.
Right. So when you try to leave the area where the Bakura live, the cruciforms give you great pain. And so originally he used some drugs and alcohol to try to dead it, and then eventually had to upgrade to ultramorphine to keep the pain of the cruciform at bay. And so he has his own cruciform and Paul Duré's on his back. If they ever lets the cruciform do its job, he'll eat a lot, become twice as big, and then die, and then two new bodies will grow, one from each cruciform, one rebuilding Leonard Hoyt and one rebuilding Paul Duré.
Yeah. Choices, man. These people made choices.
He carries both their lives on his body, essentially.
Yes. And that's the end?
That's the end of his story. Close enough.
That was not 40 minutes, but that felt long.
It was long, Danielle. There were a lot of things that you sort of like mushed together into
Well, you know what? They didn't
thing.
need a whole recap. They can listen to the first episode.
Oh, I'm not saying they did, Danielle, but I try to be clear. There was a cathedral built into the wall, and there was a separate cave full of cruciform. That's important.
But now we're going to listen to somebody else's story, because this is apparently how they decide to get to know each other.
Yes.
Again, drinking games would be quicker and more fun.
Well, this is a very dour group. We're into part 2 of, chapter 2, I should say, of Hyperion. I like both, chapter 2 and part 2.
Okay.
We open on a rainy day in the capital city of Keats. Named, of course, for the poet Keats.
Is this in the past, or is this current?
The pilgrims touch down in the consul's ship, having left the tree ship, but things look a lot different than Martin Sleans remembers Hyperion looking when he was last there. There are rows of tents and mud streets surrounding the spaceport. There's a massive crowd of people being kept at bay by forest marines and the repelling fields, and like a no man's land of mines and or death beam zones.
Oh, okay.
So Kassad observes that all the people there, they want out. They're like trying to break into the spaceport to get out. They're met at the ship by a force lieutenant and a tall, thin man the consul identifies as Theo, his former aide when he was consul of Hyperion, and the person who has since been consul and now been promoted to the acting governor general since Hyperion was accepted into the hegemony as a colony in an emergency motion they made to help fend off the Ousters and deal with the time tomb, whatever's going to happen with those.
Okay, that was just all nonsense, but okay, carry on.
That was all nonsense. It was a very clear chain of command. He got promoted when the consul left into the new consul, and then promoted further to the governor general. Basic politics, Danielle. Come on.
Basic politics that I don't care about, so carry on.
No, I'm sorry, Danielle, but you're just welcome to Hyperion. There's going to be a lot of politics you don't care about, I guess. So they board a skimmer with Theo and head out into the city. Theo explains the city has swelled to over 3 million people, which is nearly 3/4 the population of the entire planet.
Wow.
Everyone is trying to get out. They're fleeing both the Ouster invasion, which is imminent, but mostly the Shrike. And the Shrike, in the intervening 3 years that the pilgrims were traveling to the planet, the Shrike has been just everywhere. It used to be confined to the time tombs, but has since been wandering apparently anywhere it wants on the planet, just murdering, like killing over 20,000 people so far.
Why is there a church to this thing?
Because, Danielle, it's a monstrous killing machine. It seems like a god. Of course people are going to worship it.
I think that's just a terrible decision.
I'm not here to comment on anyone's religious choices, Danielle, but I do know people would worship that thing.
Yeah, probably. You're right.
Yeah. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm not saying any church is right or wrong. That's beyond the scope of my abilities. But I do know if there was a giant, immortal killing machine of immense power, people would worship it.
Has there been any proof that worshiping this thing actually helps in any way, or do you still die from it?
I have no idea, Danielle.
Because I feel like it doesn't count if you worship something and then you get nothing from it. Like, you don't get any protection from the creature itself.
Well, maybe worshiping it and dying by its hand is your salvation. I don't know their religious doctrine, Danielle. It's not covered.
You're right. I'm sorry. I forgot the human capacity to, like, circular logic something into existence as to why it's a good thing to get murdered by your deity.
Thank you, Danielle. All right. Like, again, I want to also say this chapter has a lot of faux history and politics, like earth politics and religious stuff. And just like with the last chapter with the Catholic Church, I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to comment on any of these religions or groups. I'm just relaying what the book is saying.
And I will comment haphazardly.
Okay.
We'll see
so
what happens.
There we go. I'm glad about with that disclaimer out of the way. Let's continue.
All right.
So the Shrike has been wandering around just murdering people. Force, remember, Force is I forgot what it actually stands for, but is the military arm of the hegemony.
The Force Space.
There's Force Space. There's Force Combined. There's Force, I guess, Ground, Force Command. There's a bunch of different force.
Earth Force, Water Force. Our powers combined form of an ice dragon.
Earth doesn't exist anymore.
Bummer.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Poor Captain Planet.
He's the
captain of now another planet. Captain Hyperion.
Captain Mars. So Force hasn't done anything. They just sort of sit around and protect the spaceport. And the Self-Defense Force, or SDF of the planet, they actually rode out to try to confront the Shrike, just completely slaughtered. Like, what a great idea that was.
Excuse me, giant deity-like creature. Could you please stop rampaging through our humans and other spacelings?
8,000 people out on some weird guys like, I'm going to do this. We're going to take 8,000 people trying to confront the Shrike. All dead. Like, absolute massacre.
Shocking.
I know.
But we worship you.
No, they didn't worship him. They were not part of the church. They were part of the defense force.
I'm sure some of them were probably trying to throw trinkets, hoping for the best.
And I'm sure by the end they were repenting, because what else were you going to do? Anyway, Theo then tries to convince the consul to abandon the pilgrimage, stay in Crete, and become the acting governor general in his place, because Theo has immense respect for the consul. He knows him as one of the best diplomats and crisis managers he's ever met. And none of them are going to survive to even reach the Shrike in the time tombs anyway, most likely, because of how chaotic things are with the Shrike going everywhere. So the pilgrimage is pointless. So stop doing that and come help me. And the consul says he can't. Not that he won't, but that he can't. He has to go on this pilgrimage.
Because they said so?
He does not elaborate.
Because he feels called. Because he's one with the Shrike.
The consul is very circumspect. He shares very little.
Because he needs to go through the time tombs.
We don't even know his name, Danielle.
I know. I don't
know if we find it out in this series or not. I can't remember.
I'm going to call him Billy Joe.
Okay, well, Sad King Billy is actually a character, so.
Okay, let me think of a better one.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get to Sad King Billy, I promise. That's probably going to be next week or 2 weeks. Anyway, Theo is upset by the consul's refusal, but he takes him to the Shrike Church anyway, or the Shrike Temple, where they're supposed to start their pilgrimage. But oh no, the Shrike Temple has been destroyed, absolutely burned to the ground, smoldering ruins.
Did the Shrike do it?
No. So it turns out that in the last 3 years, the popular opinion has turned against the Shrike Church.
What? Shocking.
I know.
I can't believe that they decided to destroy the church of the thing that is destroying everything.
I know. So temples and cultists are being burned or beaten across the entire WorldWeb. And on Hyperion, the sentiment is obviously way worse. And they have been murdering the Shrike acolytes and burning the temple down here. Luckily, the Shrike priests escaped through some tunnels in the temple, but things were so bad on Hyperion that the Hyperion Senate wanted to destroy the pilgrims before they even landed. And only Theo's veto and the support of Mina Gladstone, the CEO, who fortunately still has the vote of confidence of the all thing, whatever that is, has saved them.
You beat my question. I was like, and what was the all thing again?
Yeah, I know, Danielle. It's great. I told you, I'm throwing out all the nonsense words.
Okay, there's an all thing and a Shrike, because why not?
So I'm also going to point out that the WorldWeb refers to the network of planets that make up the hegemony that are connected by Farcaster portals, and it's often just called the web, and this was written before the internet. So when I say the web, in this context, it means the WorldWeb, not the internet. Okay?
Fascinating. What a oddly specific thing.
Just saying, the web is not the internet, it is the WorldWeb.
I didn't really think it was the internet based on the context from the previous episode.
I know, but I just wanted to be extra clear. So the pilgrims decide to leave the temple and head to a local bar the consul and Martin Salinas both remember. It's an institution known as Cicero's. It is jam-packed with SDF people, but the giant owner, Stan Lewitsky, is fond of the consul and makes room for them on a balcony. And it's also revealed that Martin Salinas knew Stan's great-grandfather when he was on Hyperion.
Ooh.
Which is, I guess, a fun fact that may come back later. Again, I don't know what comes back later because I haven't read that far, and I'm just going to throw everything out there, and hopefully it's relevant.
How old is he? Did he just not age?
We don't know, Danielle. I think...
creepy.
I know. He could be 1,000,000 years old for all we know. He could be the Shrike.
I'm going to assume one of them is the Shrike. And maybe one of them is the all thing.
So while they're eating and discussing what to do next, they're approached by a hooded figure. The figure asks if they're ready to leave for the pilgrimage, and they're all immediately suspicious of him.
That seems fair.
Yeah. So Kassad flips the hood back on the figure, revealing the blue skin and blue-on-blue eyes of
Avatars?
An android.
Oh, so close.
Yeah. So, sorry, continue.
Oh, no. I was just going to make a reference to Ice Planet Barbarians, but I'm good. Thanks.
No, the androids are not built like tanks and have horns, I'm afraid.
No, disappointing.
But we do get a lot of backstory now about androids, so let me fill you in.
Absolutely. I love a good android.
So androids have been free for over a century. They were freed a century ago, and they're illegal to own in the hegemony.
Do androids have, like, human emotion in this world? Sentience of some kind? I mean, is that why they're freed?
They have sentience. I don't know about emotion. They're definitely intelligent.
So they're intelligent in a way where they knew they were enslaved?
I don't know, Danielle, the exact story. Again, we meet the android, like, this is all we meet the android pretty much is this.
Are there other, like, creatures or beings that are enslaved on these planets, and this is, like, just one of the creatures that got
I'm
freedom?
about to get to that. So,
Okay.
Danielle.
I had a lot of questions about this.
It's illegal to own androids in Hegemony, and at that point, biofactoring of them essentially stopped because why make androids if you can't own them? Because people are terrible. But on some non-colony worlds, they're still used as labor forces. So the backwaters still sometimes use androids as, I guess, slave labor, even though they are not permitted to be slaves in the Hegemony.
Okay, that's terrible.
It's not saying it's good, but even better, the Shrike Church uses androids extensively since they are technically free from original sin and thus spiritually superior to humans and thus exempt from the Shrike's wrath.
Oh my god, Shrike is so scary, guys. I don't like it. It's like everything wrong with society.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it could be a metaphor. It is science fiction.
I just hate it.
Anyway, I do love the idea that, hey, guys, we solved the original sin problem. We just manufacture people that aren't of Adam, so to speak, and therefore don't have original sin and therefore spiritually pure. Done.
Yeah,
Solved religion.
That's true, though.
I love it.
Problem solved.
It's such a great solution. The Shrike Church has it figured out. I love that. It's so clever.
And we're going to enslave them and use them a little bit.
I don't know if the Shrike Church actually enslaves them or employs them. I think they treat them better than like slaves because of their whole being spiritually.
I would hope they employ them and it's willing employment.
All I know, Danielle, is we don't learn a lot about the androids in this book. Maybe some of the others.
That's a shame.
It's all set up. Like this whole book, Danielle, is crazy because it's all basically 6 backstories of setup for the actual stories which come in the later books.
Yes, I gathered that.
All right, so the android quickly leads them to a barge on the Huli River, which is towed upriver by a pair of giant river mantas. Because how cool is that?
The river mantas?
Like mantas, like manta rays.
Oh, like manta rays.
Yeah, like giant manta rays.
I was thinking like praying mantis, so that was also cool, but in a different way.
Yeah, they're both cool, but you went river mantas. I guess that makes sense for a boat. The entire crew of this barge are androids because they were sent by the Shrike Church. And the one they met is named Betik. And they address him as A Betik, A period, because androids are given the honorific A. And when Betik addresses them, he gives them the honorific M.
Okay, just part of their language.
Yeah, so okay. A Betik, M Lamia, when he addresses Braun Lamia, for instance. So
got it.
The ship they're on is named the Benaries, and I say this because Braun Lamia tells everyone this fun trivia about the history of the word Benaries. So Benaries, also known as...
type of bird.
Sure, it's a bird. No.
It's the cousin to a canary, Sam, obviously.
Benaries, yeah, sure, it's a cousin to canary.
It was like the proto-canary.
Pray tell, Daniel, what sort of song does the proto-canary Benaries make?
The beta canary. I don't know, Sam.
do your best bird call. I want to hear this.
I'm not doing a bird call, Sam.
You're no fun.
I'll work on my Benary call.
So Benaries was named for a city, an old Earth city.
Was named after a bird.
Yes, named after a bird. Braun Lamia explains the city, also known as Varanasi or Gandhipur of the Hindu Free State. It was part of the Second Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere after the Third Sino-Japanese War, destroyed in the Indo-Soviet Muslim Republic Limited Exchange. Got all that?
Yeah. Did you say what was his name? Lamia?
Braun Lamia.
How do you spell it? The last name?
Lamia.
Oh, like the demons?
Sure.
Oh, there's a Lamia, I don't know how you pronounce it, demon. I was just curious.
So I'm assuming you got all that history about the Indo-Soviet Muslim Republic Limited Exchange.
I was mostly thinking about Lamias or Lamias and how they're like these like snake human demon creatures that I was thinking about them in context of this book I once read, and that was where my brain went while you were talking.
Great, Danielle. I give you all this history and you could go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, I'm not going to remember it later anyway, so what does it matter, Sam?
So Saul Weintraub adds that the ship was built quite some time after the big mistake in the mid-22nd century. What's the big mistake, Danielle?
That they believed in the Shrike Church.
Maybe. They don't tell me anything else.
It seems to have proven true.
So then Martin Salinas makes some comment about being robbed once in Benaries, and Braun Lamia is like, that can't be true. You're not possibly old enough to remember old Earth.
Is this the same guy who said that he knew his grandfather, whatever?
Yeah.
This guy's just old. Got it.
Yeah. Also, to be clear, the book always seems to address certain people by their full name. It's always Braun Lamia. It's always Martin Salinas. It's never just like their first name. I don't know why, so I'm going to do that anyway. to keep consistent with the book.
But some other characters get first names or last names?
Not usually. Like
they all skip full names.
It's usually Hoyt, and Kassad is Kassad. Like he doesn't always.
See, I feel like
Fedmahn
that's true
Kassad.
to life. Don't you know people that you say their entire name when you talk to them?
I know. It's so weird, and it feels natural. It's just the weirdest thing. Anyway, now they're all gathered up on the ship, heading up the Hooghly River. They decide to resume the storytelling with Kassad's story, the War Lover.
Oh, that's right. Wartime.
Definitely not.
Aww.
There is no time travel, kind of, in the story.
Oh, if you say so, Sam.
It's not time.
Other than being time tombs, there's no time travel in this whole story.
It's not time travel in the sense of, like, time cop or whatever.
Hyperion, time cop.
I would actually, the Shrike, time cop.
I'd read that.
Actually, the Shrike kind of might be a time cop when you think, all right, that's for later. That's a later discussion.
Got it.
Let's talk about Fedmahn Kassad's story. So Fedmahn Kassad, he starts by describing himself participating in the Battle of Agincourt, one late October morning in 1415 AD. Kassad was an English archer in the army of King Henry V, and they were vastly outnumbered by the French.
Mm-hmm.
This is, of course, a simulation.
Yes.
At the Olympus Command School Historical Tactical Network on Mars.
I mean, of course.
This SimStim is better than any holographic simulation. It is so good, there were rumors of cadets being found dead in their immersion creches after battles.
Because they got too excited?
Or they were killed in the battle and it was so real they died in real life. Think Matrix rules.
Right. So their body just reacted to the feeling.
I think it's more of an urban legend than actual thing that happened, but it's just there to emphasize how realistic these simulations are.
Perfect. Got it.
So the battle starts, and it is just absolutely brutal. It is, a medieval battle with archers and pikemen and horses. And so it's, lots of blood, lots of gore. Kassad is beating the crap out of people with a hammer after shooting them with arrows. And I'm kind of unsure why the Olympus Command School Historical Tactical Network, or OCS HTN, is using this ancient medieval battle as a training simulation for space warfare, but here we are.
It does seem, I think it's like trying to pull real world elements into a sci-fi story, and they give you like 3 examples of something and there's always like something that's real in the examples.
Oh no, we're going to get to that because that's exactly what this book does for the simulation. But also I think they are of dubious tactical benefit.
Okay.
Anyway, hours into the battle, Kassad goes chasing after a fleeing French man-at-arms who flees into some woods away from the battlefield. Kassad enters the woods and he's ambushed by the man-at-arms and is about to be killed by him because, when a strange woman appears behind the man-at-arms and knocks him down, where she and Kassad jump on him and just beat the ever-living snot out of him and kill him brutally, like stabbing him through his helmet into his eyes.
Nice.
Yep. The woman he observes is tall and dressed similarly to Kassad with short brown hair, and she looks to be in her mid-20s, maybe a few years older than Kassad was himself. He instantly thinks that she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen.
Do they start to make out over the dead body?
They collapse onto the ground next to the corpse, breathing heavily, exhausted, staring into each other's eyes. Kassad asks if she's all right, but she doesn't answer. Instead, she tears off his clothes, and then they have sex next to the dead body.
See, I told you.
He said make out.
Okay, I was being nice. I was trying to be PG for our listeners.
No, they totally boned down right next to the corpse of the guy they just killed.
That happens at funerals, Sam.
And I'm going to share this amazing line from the description of the act because, boy, it is a real gem of a line. I could not stop with this line. They move together, then, in a sudden tide of sensation as old and inevitable as the movement of the worlds, pulses racing, flesh quickening with its own moist purpose.
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There's no such thing as a moist purpose. I'd like to put that out
this
there.
Book was meant to differ because
Listeners, you can argue with me if you want, but moist purpose, those are 2 words that should not be put together.
I gotta say, Danielle, I don't necessarily disagree that it's nonsense, but it's very evocative nonsense that kind of made perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and I don't even mind the word moist. It's the fact that it's moist purpose.
Anyway, afterwards, Kassad falls asleep, and when he wakes up, she's gone.
Into the ether.
Just gone. So he wanders out back to the battlefield. No one seems to even notice that he was gone, and the simulation ends shortly thereafter, and he's helped out of his immersion creche by some techs to go join his compatriots.
Is he gonna fall in love with some, simulation woman, a la Geordie LaForge?
No, this is much less creepy. Somehow, I don't know how, this is less creepy than Geordie creating a facsimile of a woman on the holodeck and falling in love with her, and then meeting her later in real life and thinking she should be the same as his holo girlfriend.
What What an arc, man. What an arc.
Anyway, that's a Star Trek interruption for this, but worth it.
Because you're talking about holodecks. I mean, it's just... and
Sim-stims, Danielle, please.
Okay, holodecks and androids. How is this not Star Trek?
It's certainly hornier.
Star Trek could be pretty horny.
That's true. You got me there. I forgot about what's her face, Troy's mother.
Yeah. It's a couple of Troy episodes, a couple of Crusher episodes too.
That's right.
And Riker, come on.
But Riker's like horny in a fun way. This is horny in a weird way.
Sometimes Riker is horny in a weird way.
No, Riker's horny and like he just loves everybody and wants to share his love with the world. He's like the joyful horny.
We do love a good Riker.
He's like, anyway, I wish again, this is the wrong podcast to discuss how joyfully horny Commander Riker is. But I stand by my statement.
Okay, moving on, everybody.
So, for weeks now, Kassad would spend his free time scouring the command school and, frankly, most of Mars, looking for the mystery woman. He asks, like, a tech about, like, oh, did you know about that little, grove of trees over there? And the tech's like, those don't exist. Like, nothing outside the battlefield is even simulated. So, nothing outside the battlefield exists. So, I don't know what you're talking about.
Creepy.
Yeah. So, Kassad, having not been able to find the woman, starts to focus his obsession to becoming, like, a better cadet and a better soldier. It was later, in another simulation, that Kassad meets her again. In fact, he meets her in a bunch of different simulations. I'm just going to list them in a minute because it's funny.
Does he have sex with her every single time?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Every single time. Every time they meet, it's absolutely just Bone City. But first, we're going to talk about what the simulations are. So the simulations are more than just simulations. Kassad learned this by talking to some of the techs and some of the other cadets. The OCS HTN was part of the WorldWeb All Thing, essentially an interplanetary internet that evolved to have a form of autonomy, actually like sentience. So think about like a sentient internet and how terrifying that sounds.
That sounds horrifying. Did it turn into the Shrike? Because I feel like this is just a dystopian nightmare, Hyperion and these books.
Do you think that the WorldWeb All Thing turns into the Shrike?
Yes, actually. I think it gets sucked into its own sentience and then it like a good thing turns into the Shrike via worldwide sentience.
I don't think that happens, but I don't remember if there's any, we'll get to it. That's book 4. I think we talked about this more. Book 3 or 4.
So tune back in about a year, everybody. And we will have our answers to whether or not the All Thing turns into the Shrike via some kind of weird computer sentience.
Sure. But anyway, this autonomous WorldWeb helps support the OCS HTN SimStim in this way. So, quote unquote, because here comes technobabble time. More than 150 planetary data spheres mingled their resources within the framework created by 6,000 Omega-class AIs to allow the OCS HTN to function. Got that?
No, I was actually playing elevator music in my head. It was like...
I figured you were. This is what I put up with, guys. Thankless work I do.
It was like, hold music, please hold. And then you turn back in. That was my brain.
So the simulations are described as the HTN dreaming with the best historical accuracy in the universe. And then when it dreams, the cadets dream with it to become part of the simulation.
But they can force the dreams, like whatever dreams they want.
I mean, it's a metaphor.
Well, if it's like sentient, it's like an enslaved creature.
It's not enslaved. I think it has autonomy.
So it's okay with all these cadets using its dream force?
Well, it's like not the world, the All Thing itself isn't, it's more complicated. It's like a collection of, anyway, we'll get to the All Thing later.
Okay.
All I can say is that this is what happened. This is how they describe it. All right. So anyway, let me list for you the battles in which Kassad and the woman hook up. They hook up in the first U.S.-Vietnam War.
As one
quote unquote
does.
First. On the second day of Gettysburg.
Yeah, I mean, natural.
In Hellas Basin during the hover tank battle.
Yes.
In the ruins of Brasilia, which was decimated by Chinese death beams on EMVs.
That sounds possible.
During some unnamed battle on the Russian steppes.
Uh-huh.
And after the evacuation of New Chicago when he was a sniper in that simulation.
Poor old Chicago. We miss you.
He asked her repeatedly to stay with him. Like, hey, can I see you outside the simulation? And she never once says anything.
They never talk. They just like fight and then have sex.
They don't even fight. Like, I don't think they just meet and have sex and then she like disappears.
I mean, it could be worse.
I mean, sounds pretty good. But unfortunately, in his last year at the academy, there are fewer simulations and more field exercises, and he doesn't see her again.
That's sad.
So poor Kassad, very sad.
Poor Kassad.
After graduation and a few weeks of freedom forecasting about the WorldWeb, Kassad is shipped off to the Hegemony Colonial Service Training School on Ousters to prepare for active duty outside the web. And now it's time for Kassad's backstory, Danielle.
Oh my gosh, that wasn't the backstory.
No, that was the introduction to his backstory. Kassad grew up in a culture of poverty and sudden death, part of a minority that still called themselves Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
Dispersed after the nuclear jihad of 2038 into a second diaspora lasting 500 years and leading them to worlds like Mars after the death of old Earth. Question, is there a new Earth? I don't know.
Well, probably if there's a new Chicago.
So he grew up in the South Tharsis relocation camps and ran with gangs because ran with gangs or be victimized by them, and had already killed another youth by 16.
I am imagining Rumble Snaps.
It's absolutely West Side Story on Mars.
Excellent.
Which would be awesome.
That.
Yeah.
I would watch the heck out of that. I'm not even a huge fan of West Side Story.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his best work, but it's still a good movie. Anyway, Mars was known for three things in the WorldWeb: hunting in the Mariner Valley, Schroeder's Zen Massif and Hellas Basin, and the Olympus Command School. So get those things straight if you ever want to visit. Put those on your checklist for tourist attractions.
Got it. Wrote them down.
After being caught, Kassad was forced at 18 to join the John Carter Brigade. John Carter Brigade, ring a bell?
Sure.
There are a lot of references in this book to other things. In this case, John Carter is a reference to the Edgar Rice Burroughs novels.
Yeah.
Princess of Mars and the Barsoom series.
Terrible
anyway,
movie,
Terrible movie, but quite weird and somehow intriguing, interesting book series from the turn of the century.
Yes, better book than a movie.
Significantly. I mentioned that because one of the few references in this book I do get, and there are many, many more I'm probably missing. Anyway, so this militia was formed to assist Force in putting down the Glennon Height Rebellion in the Class 3 colonies.
As opposed to Class 2 or Class 1?
Who knows? I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
I told you this was the highest ratio of nonsense to words in my notes so far.
It'd be fun to write it as a writer. You're just like, I'm going to make stuff up.
He just puts whatever he wants in and calls it world building. It's actually pretty cool.
Pages and pages of made up nonsense.
And it's all actually does a pretty good job of fleshing out the universe.
Absolutely.
I can't say it's not effective, so good for him.
The sheer density makes it feel like a really strongly built world, even if it's not.
I certainly not making a comment whether it's strongly built or not. I think it's pretty well thought out in terms of that weird sci-fi way, but boy, it is definitely dense. So Kassad found he enjoyed the structure of military life and applied to the Force ground when the brigade was dissolved. He was turned down and went on a 9-day drinking binge, ending up in the tunnels of Lucis. Kassad worked hard labor for 6 months to save enough money to ship out to Maui Covenant. He arrived on Maui Covenant just as the Island War began, and eventually badgered the Force Combined commander at first sight into letting him enlist. He distinguished himself as an assistant hydrofoil driver and was tapped to go into command squad Olympus. And now we're caught up.
Perfect. That was quicker than I imagined it would be.
It wasn't in the book.
I appreciate your summary, Sam.
Back in the present of the story within the story that Kassad is telling, Kassad dreamed often of the mystery girl, but kept her totally secret because he feared he would have some weird psychological profile, and if he told anybody about his weird sex encounter with the mystery woman.
Did he tell them about it?
No, he told no one. He's telling the pilgrims about it, but he didn't tell anyone, the Force commanders about it.
Okay, but he is telling the pilgrims. This is what he's saying out loud. Got it.
He's telling them totally honesty. We have to assume for whatever reason they're being totally honest with each other. Or at least, as Hoyt demonstrated, relatively honest.
Well, that's okay. I mean, solid A. A for effort. Other than these cruciforms on my chest, I'm being totally honest, you guys.
T for cruciform, Danielle. Kassad quickly rose to the ranks of Force, but things came to a head when the new prophet Anquam Riyad decided to lead his 30 million New Order Shiite followers against the Sunni and hegemony infidels. Because some things never change, I guess?
I guess.
And during that uprising, a hegemony ship and his crew were taken prisoner. As the ranking officer in the area, Force Combined Captain Fedmahn Kassad was in charge of releasing the hostages, getting them back. So Kassad tapped into the communication network on the planet and ordered the rebellion leaders, broadcast a message ordering the rebellion leaders to surrender the hostages and return to their homes within 3 hours.
Or else?
Yeah. The new prophet reacted very poorly to this by planning a television execution of the hostages at the deadline Kassad proposed. He's like, well, let's kill those guys at that time instead of that.
That's hilarious. I mean, really? That's a great response. Well, then I'll kill them all.
Yeah, he's like,
now what are you going to do about it?
You can tell me to give up in 3 hours? I'm just going to murder them on TV in 3 hours, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, it'd be fun if it wasn't so, like, absolutely crazy and awful, but yeah.
But, props for good problem solving.
So Kassad spent those 3 hours tapping into the planetary datasphere using spy satellites to pinpoint the location of 16,830 revolutionary mullahs.
Got it.
The data was fed to 21 perimeter defense satellites that Kassad had originally been tasked with decommissioning due to their age. Anyway, as the deadline elapsed, 19 of those satellites detonated their fusion cores, and just before they completely destroyed themselves, the resulting X-ray bursts from the fusion core detonations were focused by the satellites at the mullahs, managing to kill 15,784 of them, including the new prophet who had his head explode live on TV just before the executions.
Classic.
It's pretty, like, I don't know, it's really awful, but it's, like, so cartoonishly awful that it's kind of funny.
It's like fun to watch.
Yeah. So like the rebellion ended there, obviously, but his actions went against the Force new Bushido code, which we'll get to in a moment.
They just sit Force in front of everything.
Well, the new Bushido code is part of the Force doctrine, but it's not Force : new Bushido, like it is Force : ground or Force : space. Anyway, this caused him to face a court-martial, which eventually ended in the promotion because why not? So let's talk New Bushido, Danielle.
Yeah, let's.
So, New Bushido was something that evolved to preserve the military class's existence.
Sure.
There was a period on old Earth where military leaders committed nations to these wars using strategies that involved having entire civilian populations be targets. So, really awful wars, yeah.
That doesn't happen in real life.
I know. It's almost like he's making a point here. So unsurprisingly, this really ticked off the civilian populations, and they basically turned against their military classes. I don't know exactly what the
so
political
surprised
structure
that
was.
happened, really.
Really shocking. And so the military was like, we're totally going to adopt this new code called New Bushido. So you don't have to overthrow us. We're turning over a new leaf.
Where we won't kill you, or we'll kill you very quickly so that you can't uprise.
Well, the code actually forbade the use of nuclear weapons and strategic bombing campaigns, except in extreme cases, so it's kind of toothless, but also demanded a return to medieval battle tactics where two armies would face each other in a battlefield at an agreed-upon time and place in order to keep civilian casualties and property damage to a minimum.
Sure.
So basically no more wars in cities. Like, hey, I'll meet you out there in the field, we'll go fighty-fighty, and whichever army's left standing wins.
I think there should be a series of games where the two leaders, the two different populations that are fighting, get to like play a series of things, and the winner of the most wins.
So like that scene from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey where they're playing death in a bunch of board games, but as military leaders.
Exactly.
Okay. Fewer people would die, it's true.
And you'd have to like prove many things. I mean, there could be like physical prowess, it could be mental prowess. I mean, emotional prowess.
You're just describing like, I don't know, Ninja Warrior or something.
Sure, I would. Wouldn't you watch two competing political figures to Ninja Warrior?
No, you're describing? I don't remember. Do you remember Robot Jocks?
Yes.
You're basically describing Robot Jocks.
That was a great idea, though. I was not against that. I was against many things in Robot Jocks. I was not against that.
True. That's a very good point, Danielle. No, that's a good point. I don't disagree, but apparently the military said, we still got to kill, but we're just going to do it in a more ordered way.
Okay, well, my idea was better.
I can't argue that. So the code worked, and within the hegemony, with this monopoly on far-fetched technology that allowed it to strategically deploy the modest resources of force where and when it needed. So, yay, everything was happy. But then the Ousters attacked. So the one external threat to the hegemony was the Ousters, a group of humans that had left the Sol system some 400 years earlier in crude O'Neill cities, tumbling asteroids and experimental comet clusters to live in deep space.
I'm glad we finally got a description of who these people things are, since they're
you can get a lot more in a minute.
Actual threat.
Oh yeah. So the hegemony reacted to the Ousters by basically just ignoring them, being like, all right, our official policy is they don't exist.
That totally will work.
It does not.
Shocking, since they're fighting on Hyperion right this very minute.
Or about to be. Right. So they would occasionally skirmish with the hegemony in space, and rumors swirled about the Ousters having evolved into something that's not quite human, like more adapted to deep space living and able to survive in the gravity of an Earth Earth-like planet.
Ooh, creepy.
Then came Brescia, an independent world with economic ties to the hegemony. The Ousters invaded en masse. First, the Ousters scoured the less populated northern continent, decimating it with fallout-free nukes and tactical plasma bombs, killing most of the 14 million residents there.
Rough.
And despite the Force doctrine that ground invasion of an industrialized planet was functionally impossible, orbital bombardment being the only reasonable option, the Ousters decided to do a ground invasion of South Brescia, where there were nearly 400 million people.
And they won?
Well, while the Ousters had changed to adapt to zero-G, they did use powered exoskeletons to allow them to move around the planet's surface, and this turned them into formidable warriors, and they just overwhelmed the continent, overrun it, because...
So they're like those, like Ripley from Aliens?
Yeah, think less forklift and more, super soldier.
Okay.
But the forces... What a phrase, were not there because Brescia was not actually a hegemony planet and didn't have a Farcaster, so it would take them a month to get there to send their forces to support Brescia. And in that time, the Ousters have basically ransacked the planet and overran it.
There was an absurd amount of people on that planet to not have some kind of military force.
I'm sure they had like a self-defense force, an SDF, but it was just not prepared for the level of invasion that the Ousters were providing. Like, it was beyond their capabilities.
They should have a spy.
A spy where?
With the Ousters.
How are they going to spy?
I don't know, Sam, but the story could make it up. It's an author.
They look different. They're like a different biologically...
They can figure it out, Sam. They can figure it out.
Okay, well, you call me in a Gladstone and tell her to put a spy in the Ousters.
Just
Send
saying.
her a fat line squirt.
There's not like some kind of creature that can mimic other creatures or some kind of like shot they can give somebody that like turns them into something else. Like, come on, please. It's sci-fi.
Man, the official policy is Ousters don't exist, Danielle.
Okay, well,
or should be ignored.
That's working out well for them. I hope they continue that.
Well, fortunately, they did react because Kassad arrives with the Force fleet 29 weeks after the invasion to start a counter-invasion. And it is absolutely brutal. Like, Kassad quickly sees that the new Bushido code is not going to work here because the Ousters use scorched earth tactics and guerrilla tactics, and they have no problem killing civilians and making booby traps and using nukes and all those kinds of things.
Right, because that policy only works if everybody's following it.
I know. That's
stupid.
The problem with, like, honor codes is that, like, unless you have a way to enforce them with external people, they're not going to work.
Yeah, wild.
I mean, the reason the hegemony could make it work is because they had all the technology for the Farcasters and the big powerful fleet, so they had like the might makes right thing. But the Ousters are like the one force in the universe that could rival the hegemony for military power.
Exactly. Stupid. Should have saw that coming from years away.
They did not. So hundreds of thousands of Force troops were destroyed, and Mina Gladstein and her allies' resolve was the only thing that kept the war going, and instead of them like abandoning the war altogether and just saying Brescia is a write-off.
Is Mina secretly evil?
I don't know.
Is she the Shrike?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
No, I think so. She could be the all thing.
No.
You don't know that.
I don't, but I'm pretty certain.
Sam doesn't know what's going to happen in his book, everybody.
Yeah, I made that very clear from the first moment I started talking about it. Like, I did not remember what was happening. Why was that surprise?
I know. I've never shared something where I didn't know how it ended, and Sam certainly is doing that again. He's braver than I.
But I definitely know that Mina is not the Shrike or the All Thing.
You, as far as you know, I don't believe you. There's too many books.
No, I'm fairly certain.
But you're not 100% certain, so I have a chance to be right.
All right, you have a chance, Danielle. All right, so most of the other commanders besides Kassad were unable to function outside of the new Bushido. Like, we don't know how to handle this. This is like, breaks our brains. We don't know what to do. But Kassad quickly abandoned New Bushido and returned to his roots, going up the street toughs with the gangs.
Mm-hmm. Broke into a song.
Yes, broke into a song. He danced and snapped at the Ousters, and the Ousters, being adapted to space, having long fingers, were unable to snap back at them. They were ashamed and had to leave.
I'd still watch that.
No, what really happened is he got fusion weapons and used them against the Ousters and drove them out.
Oh, that seems more likely. Less interesting, more likely.
Yeah. So he eventually repels the Ousters at great cost, and during the war, every night he dreamed of her, the mystery woman, in dreams that were more and less than dreams, which is a nonsense sentence from the book.
She's the Shrike.
Is everyone the Shrike, Danielle?
Yeah, that's how I'm going to keep track of these people. There's the only way.
So everyone's the Shrike.
Everyone's a bird. Everyone's a Shrike.
Got it. I like the only thing you really remembered from the first episode is that a Shrike is a type of bird.
I mean, I learn something new every day.
So 2 days after the last of the Ousters withdrew, Kassad, while receiving a commendation, was crushed in a building, which collapsed from an Ouster booby trap. Womp womp.
He makes it through all of that just to be crushed by a building.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I think the book calls it an irony.
It is a bit.
He suffered absolutely no injury at all during the entire bloody battle and then was crushed by a building after the battles were over.
It's okay. He survives to tell the tale. Literally.
Oh, he absolutely survives. Since he had become somewhat infamous in the WorldWeb for the brutality of the Brescia campaign, even though Gladstone and the others considered him a savior, many people were like, that's awful, war crimes, he should be put on trial.
Thanks for saving all of us. We think you should go on trial too.
Well, he only saved Brescia. Like, there was no threat to the WorldWeb necessarily.
Okay, but you gotta show that Ouster's who's boss or who, like, they're just gonna keep attacking other places.
Maybe they just wanted, like, some resources from Brescia and we'll go back out into space.
Okay.
One attack in 400 years is not so bad.
They're clearly starting something.
Maybe.
And they killed, like, a zillion people.
They weren't our hegemony citizens. They not our problem. They were an independent... Danielle, I'm playing the, like, these arguments happen every day with, like, wars that happen on Earth.
It's
so
still
it's the exact
wrong.
same
That's
conversation.
why the Shrike is winning.
How do you know the Shrike is not right?
I think the Shrike might be right. We'll wipe them out, start over.
Might be the protagonist. Who knows?
I'd buy that.
Anyway, Mina Gladstone and the other politicians consider him and the other force commanders to be like their saviors, much like you think they are. And so they decide to put them...
I didn't say that. I just said, I think it's insane.
Well, they decide to put him on a hospital spin ship for a slow journey back to the web while he recovers. And they hope that, like, the whole controversy will sort of blow over by the time he actually gets back to the hegemony in 18 months.
I just don't think there were better solutions. I think assuming that the Ousters are not going to do anything more is a little crazy.
Well, you're assuming they are going to do something more. Maybe that's a crazy assumption.
Except...
maybe if we don't provoke them, they won't do anything.
Okay, that's a terrible... They already...
Danielle, appeasement worked so well in World War II. Why wouldn't it work here?
All right, moving on.
Danielle, these are how people work. I'm sorry. It's not
History definitely will not repeat itself.
This is what happened. People do this. This is arguments that happen today about how to do military intervention.
And it's wrong now, too.
I'm not here to make a judgment. I'm just going to talk about this book is going on. So Kassad wakes up in the spin ship and is told by the medic he'd been through resuscitation and renewal several times. And they're coming to orbit of either Hyperion or Garden, one of their pit stop planets on the way back. Guess which planet it is, Danielle? Hyperion or Garden?
Hyperion.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because the book's not called Garden.
I don't know why the book has this like double fake about, it could be Guard. Like, at no point did I believe for a second that it wasn't Hyperion. So that's when the spin ship is suddenly hit with an explosion and decompresses.
By the Ousters.
Kassad manages to keep from getting sucked out a hole in the hull and scavenges a barely working spacesuit from a dead Marine to survive. Very resourceful, Kassad is.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
So he finds that the spoke connecting his part of the ship to the command core, because like a spin ship like from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it spins around a center to make gravity. Mm-hmm. Anyway, had broken off, leaving him no way to reach any other part of the ship. And in the distance, he sees an Ouster warship, the source of the attack.
Oh no, the Ousters came after him? I cannot believe this is happening.
It might be a coincidence that they're there and he's there. Who knows?
Yes, I'm sure it is.
In the distance, he sees some squid-looking boarding craft headed his way. And he has only about a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before they arrive. No doubt filled with Ouster Marines or whatever their equivalent is. And that the Ousters have prehensile toes and prosthetic tails that make them ideal fighters in Zero G.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right? Isn't this cool?
I want the Ousters to win. We should all have prehensile toes and fake tails.
Yeah, right? Kassad does not want to surrender to the Ousters because when they manage to capture some Ouster ships and see what they did to civilian and forced troop prisoners, they learned at Brescia that what they did to their prisoners was they had their arms and legs amputated, their chest cavities splayed and pinned open, their organs placed in nutrient fluid so they would still be alive, their eyes removed, and then holes drilled in their skulls so cortical comm taps could be tapped into their brains for interrogation.
That sounds like fun. I mean, old school interrogation techniques are so passé. We want to do new school.
This seems immensely excessive to me.
I mean, the Ousters kind of seem excessive. Let's get on the same page here.
The Ousters seem to me to be completely extra. Like, they are so over the top. I kind of love them.
We're going to be as evil as possible.
I mean, obviously that's terrible and awful, but also like, come on, tone it down a bit.
As evil as ever been.
So Kassad goes and hides in an operating room and waits. 2 Ouster commanders eventually enter, carrying 2 weapons each, one in a hand and one in a foot. Because
Yay.
Awesome.
What about their tails?
They're mostly used for like balance and like grabbing onto things so they can navigate, I guess.
It'd be cool to use it also as a prehensile tail.
I mean, you need fingers on that. That's just a little too complicated.
No,
point is,
better guns.
Great. All right, sure. More guns. All their arms and tails will hold guns, and they won't be able to hold on to any of the arm rails or like navigate any other way. They'll just have to.
They have to be as extra as possible, Sam. We already established this.
That's true, but they have to be in pairs because one of them is all gunned down. They don't have to like push them around and to steer them in 0G. Great. But Kassad had programmed the surgery lasers in the operating room to fire on anyone entering, and it kills the first commando, and he steals his sonic gun, puts up against the helmet of the other Ouster, and pulls the trigger, liquefying that guy's brain.
Perfect. Love a good liquefying brain.
Liquefaction, thank you very much.
Liquefaction.
He then steals the suit of the commando, which he notes is a woman because they're all naked under their suits. And either way, the suit is way too tall and fits him badly, and the tail smacks against his tailbone and hurts because he doesn't know how to operate it because obviously he doesn't have the implants or whatever.
Bummer.
I know. Still, he decides to use the element of surprise, or at least continue to use the element of surprise, and he somehow busts into the squid ship, and he kills the pilot and commandeers it. And although he has no clue how to fly this ship, he manages to push random buttons enough that eventually he detaches itself from the ship it's anchored to and heads off towards the planet to escape, killing a few more commandos on his way out.
Hardcore shenanigans.
Yeah.
You accidentally managed to fly a spacecraft.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, he literally says he has no idea what he's doing, but oh wait, that kind of looks familiar. Let me push those buttons. Nonsense.
Hey, wow, it worked.
Also, more nonsense, Kassad counts on the Ouster warship just not blowing him up from space because he figures they're humans and humans want revenge. They're going to want to take him alive.
Are they?
Apparently he's spot on because it's exactly what they do. They don't shoot at him.
I feel like the story in real life would have been over.
Yo, he would have blasted like, oh, rogue ship blowing up, donezo. He crash lands on the planet, ejecting at the last moment before impact and blacking out. He wakes up, Danielle. What does he see?
The Shrike.
No, he sees a woman bending over him.
Oh yeah, I forgot about her.
The mystery woman.
I absolutely forgot she existed.
He asks if he's dead, and she speaks for the first time, telling him no in a soft and throaty voice.
Yeah, of course she has a soft and throaty voice.
I know, it's so good.
She's not going to talk like this.
You want to be like Betty Boop? That'd be great.
You're totally alive, dude.
Like, oh my god, Kassad, it's so good to meet you in person.
That's why she hasn't talked for this long.
Hey, Kassad, it's me. I'm your lover. What do you think? You want to do something about it?
Oh, poor Kassad.
Let's head down to the battlefield and have a little roll in the hay. What do you say?
He'd probably go for it. He seems into her.
He would. She states, you must have questions. But bafflingly, Kassad says no and just pulls her in for some sex.
Love him.
I was shouting at this book, I have questions. How can you not have questions? There are questions. There's so many questions. Ask some questions. Come on.
You hate when people make out or have sex when there's stuff to be done.
This is like not the time. She literally is like, here, I can answer all your questions. And he's like, no, I'd rather have sex than have this like mystery from my entire life answered. The biggest mystery of my life. There's
time after sex, Sam. Jeez.
There won't be, and I'll be mad about it then too. Infuriating.
They did it just to mess with you.
Me particularly.
That's like every thriller where they're like, I can't tell you over the phone. Let's meet up in person. You're like, tell them over the phone.
Right. They're like, no, like, I can't tell you. We have to find a safe place to talk. I'm like, yeah, do you?
Crazy.
So afterwards, they get dressed, and the woman says that her name is Monita or Namazani. So Monita or Namazani. Pick your pick.
She has two names for funsies because one isn't enough.
Well, one is a reference to a Greek muse, and the other one is the name they actually call her in the book.
Well, then why just pick Just pick one. Just pick one, Dan Simmons. Just pick one.
Everything has to be a reference, Danielle.
It does not, cut. Mr. Simmons.
Everything in this book is a deep cut, Danielle. I'm guaranteeing there are layers I am missing completely. I would love to see like a breakdown of every reference. Like, you know how in, say, Pride and Prejudice, they have like footnotes by scholars telling like, oh, this references this references that, like cultural references so you know what they're talking about. I want to see the annotated Hyperion book.
It probably exists by a super fan, Sam. You could find it.
Oh, if you're out there,
listeners,
send me a copy of that.
If you happen to know of an annotated copy of Hyperion, please send Sam a link or the actual book itself. I don't care.
I care. I want them both. So she informs him he crash landed in the abandoned City of Poets right near the Time Tombs, and the Ousters have landed nearby that are coming to chase him down. But the Pain Lord took the crew of one of the boats unto himself.
The Pain Lord?
The Pain Lord.
The Lord of Pain?
The Lord of Pain.
I'm assuming
AKA,
we mean pain, physical pain, and not like window panes.
Yes.
Okay, just being clear.
It's the Shrike, Danielle. The Pain Lord is a Shrike.
Ah, that makes sense.
Like Kassad clocks that immediately. Like, oh yeah, the Shrike's like, yeah, Pain Lord.
Okay, I did not clock that immediately.
No, but he does. He's like, oh, the Pain Lord took the crew unto himself. And so like the Shrike murdered one of the boats.
I got it now. I got it.
Yeah.
Metaphor.
So she leads him to the Time Tombs, which he describes 3 of them as a glowing obelisk, a stone sphinx that absorbs light, and a complex structure of twisted pylons, among many others.
Okay.
Each tomb has a door, and each door is open, but Kassad knew that no one ever found anything inside of them. They're always empty, and there's no like secret rooms or anything, just empty tombs. But they can't get too close to them because the time tides from the anti-entropic fields are strong today.
As they are sometimes.
You gotta keep an eye on the tides if you want to sail your boat, I guess, along the time fields.
Yeah. This is like that one movie with the ship through time.
You gotta be more specific than that. You're talking about the one with Matthew McConaughey?
No, it's the one with like, is it Warwick Davis?
Do you mean Time Bandits?
Yeah, Time Bandits.
They didn't take a ship through time. They were on a ship in one like episode or one scene, but
okay, the only thing I remember from that movie is that they're on a ship and it has to do with time.
Those are somewhat unrelated. Also, that's on my list of movies to do for this podcast, so I'm glad your memory is so fuzzy.
14.
Great movie. Terry Gilliam.
Actually, I've seen it several times. It was just all before the age of 14, so I don't have any memory of it.
Impressive, Danielle.
I thought so.
Anyway, Kassad asks if the anti-entropic field keep the time tombs from aging, but Manita tells him no, they drive the tombs backwards in time. So the time tides drive the tombs backwards through time.
Sure.
And then suddenly a giant metal tree covered in steel thorns appears, at least 200 meters tall.
Wait, appears where?
Just in the valley, amongst the time tombs.
Oh, okay.
And Kassad can see stuck onto many of the spikes, Ouster corpses impaled there. And also on some of the other thorns, he could see other branches that held the bodies of other people, not all of them being human. So just corpses all over this tree.
So it's like a sentient murder tree?
Not sentient. It's the Shrike's murder tree.
The Shrike has a giant metal tree ship?
So, in case, to be clear, the reason it's called the Shrike is because actual Shrikes, the birds, like I said, they impale bugs and things on spikes like cacti and barbed wire. And so this Shrike impales its victims on this giant metal tree.
How does it get to its victims fast enough to impale them? Does it move like a cat?
What do you mean? How does a Shrike get to its victims?
I mean, are they floating through space? How does he get to a, like, Ouster and impale it?
The ones that were landed on the surface of the planet, Danielle.
They just, like, flew up to him and stuck them?
He takes them and puts them on the tree.
Oh, he, like, kidnaps them and then puts them, like, squiggles their body down into the spikes? Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly like that. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
I know that was a reference to Eddie Izzard.
It was, but is that how it works? I mean, it's a valid reference. Is that what he does? The Shrike?
I mean, he impales them on the spikes, yes.
I just kind of assumed the ship itself impaled itself into
This is not a ship, Danielle. This is a tree growing out of the sand of the Time Tomb Valley.
It just appeared out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Move on.
This is magic, Danielle. And then a dust storm obscures the tree, and when it clears, the tree has vanished.
Magic.
It's a magic time-traveling tree of thorns.
Sure.
Metal tree.
Does it just, like, reach its arms out and impale?
The Shrike is, like, able to disappear and reappear wherever it wants.
So the Shrike, the creature, the Shrike itself, like, will go and get the Ouster and then stick the body of the Ouster on a spike on its time tree.
Danielle, we don't see any more than this at this point. This is all we know.
Okay, well, this is silly. Go ahead, continue on.
I think there's going to be more about this tree later. Anyway, the tree is gone. Moneta then leads Kassad to a hidden door in a nearby cliff face into a room that's kind of like a storeroom. It's full of crap. They get undressed. Kassad tells her that she's been in his dreams for years, and she says, yes, your past, my future. The shockwave of events moves across time like ripples in a pond.
Is she him in the future?
No.
Is he sleeping with himself?
Awesome as that would be, no.
Has he still not had any of his questions answered?
No, I told you. He chose sex over answers, Danielle, which is the wrong choice.
Probably really good sex, Sam.
You're going to see how good it gets later.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Oh, you're going to want to. Anyway, after she strips him and herself, she takes a golden ferrule and presses it against his chest.
What's a golden ferrule?
It's a ferrule that's like golden.
What's a ferrule?
A ferrule is like, I know them from when we use them in like hooking up hosing, where they go on the end of a tube, and then when you attach it, it compresses to keep things from leaking. It's like a...
You just say words so casually, like people know what they are.
Okay, a metal cap placed on a wooden pole to prevent splitting.
Oh, sure.
I'm familiar with them used on the end of HPLC tubing, but that's my experience.
The experience of Sam is that he knows what everything is and says it so casually, like the average person knows. Oh, pharaohs. Oh, shrikes.
Yeah, this is the second word you've learned in this book, Danielle.
I'm going to remember that one later. It's not nearly as entertaining as a bird that pokes its beak through whatever the words are looking for, insects.
That impales insects? Yeah. No, it also called a butcher bird, which is fun.
Also memorable. And Benaries. They're evil. Benaries.
Oh, the fake bird you made up, right?
You don't know that they're not real.
Okay, sure. Anyway, so she presses his golden ferrule against his chest, and his flesh becomes mirrored when she does. Like, he becomes covered in a quicksilver force field from head to foot.
Literally mirrored.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like doubled or something.
No. He gets covered in this mirrored force field.
He becomes
like
a disco ball?
No, because it's not faceted. It's just like he got dipped
shiny
in liquid metal, and it's like his face is a blank oval.
Excellent.
Where it's like his head is like the shape of a human without any of the features, and it's just silver.
It's not weird at all.
And shiny. And Moneta does the same for herself. She then tells him his enemies, the Ousters, await him just beyond the city. And Kassad is like, they don't really matter at this point, do they? And she's like, oh, the enemy is always important.
You think?
And she's like, you must arm yourself.
She's evil.
And then she like gives him a bronze sphere, like presses a bronze sphere against him and a blue toroid. And he feels the bloodlust rise within him for violence.
What's a toroid?
A toroid? A torus is like a donut shape.
Oh, a torus. But it's
a toroid.
Okay.
Is a noun.
Okay, Sam. Again.
Look.
Listeners. Somebody needs to be on my side. These are not normal words.
So the donut shape of an object enclosed by a torus is a toroid.
I believed you. I'm just saying that they're not words that are used casually in conversation.
I don't to say, Danielle, I take a topology class or something.
Learn more, Danielle. Geez.
Yeah. I thought you read.
I read a lot.
I know. You read way more than I do.
I'm on a book podcast. I've read like 50 books this year. It's only May.
And yet toroid has never come up.
Shockingly.
You need to read more hardcore science fiction, Danielle.
Oh my god. No, I don't. I get all of mine from you. It's fine.
Oh, welcome to Vocabulary Hour with Sam and Danielle.
Where Sam just says nonsense word and Danielle reacts inappropriately loud.
Oh gosh, I'm dying. I thought Taurus may have been questionable. Yeah, it's a Taurus. It's fine. Well, it's an enclosed area of a Taurus. Anyway.
Can't believe my vocabulary is not huge after 20 years of knowing you.
I mean, it's pretty huge, relatively.
But I can't imagine. It should be immense. It should be bigger than any human being's vocabulary should ever be. Listening to you talk.
I'm sorry. I'll try to make sure I define every word I say to you from now on.
You're worse than my father.
Oh, that's deep cut. I guess I don't know your father that well.
My entire childhood was him saying words I didn't understand, me asking what they meant, and he saying, "Look it up in your funkin' wagnalls." And me going, "What?"
Funkin' wagnalls?
It's an old-timey dictionary, Sam.
Okay, well, that one's on me. You got me there.
Yes, I win.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I didn't know what funkin' wagnalls. It's all right. You know way more celebrities than I do.
Oh, that's my claim to fame.
Anyway, I don't know what the sphere or toroid does to him, but apparently it makes him all horny for murder.
And he still has no idea any of the answers to his previous questions.
None whatsoever.
Man, this guy's terrible.
I told you! Questions first, sex later.
She doesn't even bring it up again. It's not like she's like, now would you like to know some of the answers to your questions?
She's like, you had your chance, you made your choice.
You had one chance.
This is on you, Kassad.
Well, you have no idea what's going on later. It's your fault.
All right, well, back to what's going on here. She then leads him to go meet the Shrike in an abandoned amphitheater in the City of Poets. And the Shrike is, of course, a massive creature, like 7, 8, 10 feet tall. I forget exactly how tall, but big, shiny metal, covered in spikes, has 4 arms, which always bugged me that the cover of the book version I had of this had the picture of the Shrike on it, but it only had 2 arms. I'm like, no, that doesn't look right.
I hate when they do that.
Because 4 arms looks cool, man. I'd want that on there.
How come they have to go up against this, so-called deity? Why is that?
Well, they're not.
Why?
Who's going up against it?
I don't know. Why are they going to go find him?
Because we're about to get to that. So the Shrike, masked creature, 4 arms, and 1,000 faceted red eyes. And they're sort of working with the Shrike now. Because the Shrike leads them out of the city towards one of the Ouster ships. So, it's
like rock
somehow
in a hard place.
Monita is working with or for the Shrike.
I told you she was evil.
I mean,
good evil.
Maybe the Shrike isn't evil.
I don't know. I already said it might be good.
Okay. So they approach the first ship where the Ousters have set defenses, and Kassad can see through his magic force mirror thing the energy fields of the containment fields around the ships and the motion sensor beams. He can see outside the visible spectrum. And time has slowed to a crawl, if not completely stopped around him. And the Shrike just sort of strides casually in between the frozen Ousters while Kassad wonders how this time manipulation is possible. And Monita just is like, he's the Pain Lord. He controls time. And Kassad's like, cool.
So he has 2 legs. The
2 legs,
Time
4
Lord,
arms.
Pain Lord. And 4 arms, and then somehow a head big enough to have 1,000 eyes on it.
Well, no, his eyes are faceted, like diamond, 1,000 facets in his eyes.
Are they bigger than normal eyes?
I mean, they're in a bigger head, so I think so. They kind of look like red gems set into his skull.
Okay,
glowing
sure.
red gems.
Just want to properly envision this potentially evil creature.
It's very hard to describe because it's described very poetically often in the book. So Kassad realizes his enemy is totally defenseless. He can just slaughter them like lambs, and it's not an honorable combat. There's no new Bushido code here. It's just murder. Then time speeds up again, not to full speed, but faster than not going at all. And the killing begins, with the Shrike literally ripping the heart out of a man's chest, shoving his hand in there, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom style.
You said there was no time war, but this is a time war, Sam.
It's not a time war because they're not warring through time. They're just...
There's a time manipulation in a war happening.
Yeah, that's why I said kind of, but it's not a time war in the sense that you thought that was a war across different time.
I didn't really think that. That was just my first guess.
So Kassad's mirrored form grows blades from his hands, and he starts just slicing people's heads off and kicking their spines out, just going completely berserk on them. And it's kind of like a Zack Snyder film in that it's lurching between fast-mo and slow-mo. It'll be slow-mo, then it'll speed up, then it'll go slow again.
Classic.
So this is where he got the idea, clearly.
Classic Snyder.
And then Monita and the Shrike are also killing, and Kassad then realizes he can kind of control the speed of the time flow a bit by blinking. He'll blink and they'll go fast, and he'll blink and they'll go slow, so he can kind of manipulate the time flow a bit that way. And then the remaining Ouster ship takes off to flee and decides to just slag and blast the other ship apart, trying to kill Kassad and the Shrike and Monita as it runs away. And of course, it does not succeed because they are able to dodge the blast of the other ship easily.
I can't believe that it didn't succeed.
Kassad then asks if they can stop the other ship from leaving, and Monita says they could, but they won't, because they want those survivors to go and spread the message. Kassad asks what message, but she just tells him to come over here.
I'm sorry, you had a chance for questions earlier. Yeah. We are no longer taking them.
The time for questions has passed. You will get no answers now.
You chose poorly.
What he chose is sex, which is about what we're about to get to again right now.
Maybe they like feed on the power of it.
So, Danielle, we're getting to my favorite part of the story, which is the weirdest part of the story. So he tells him to come over here and deactivates his force field suit and her own. And he carries her naked body up to a little hummock covered in the Ouster corpses. And they start having sex again. And during the act, Kassad starts having glimpses, visions of a massive and bloody war consuming star systems. Like this huge, unfathomable battle with a massive death toll. And then suddenly, Moneta starts transforming, a thorn of steel growing up from her chest. Her skin becoming metallic and covered in spikes. And her mouth with rows of steel blades instead of teeth.
Is he having sex with the Shrike?
Despite her bladed hands tearing at his flesh on his back, he can't stop.
Ew, like, come on, dude.
He's pulling him, like she is pulling him to her. And in the very last moment before culmination, he manages to pull away as, quote unquote, metal teeth click shut in a steel vagina, nearly severing his member.
Fun times.
So a literal vagina dentata of metal from this transforming woman / Shrike thing.
Shrike Jr.
So he convulses in an uncontrollable climax on the ground as she stands above him, all metal and thorns, and then suddenly she's back to flesh and she whispers Kassad at him, but he turns and just flees. He runs away. He's done with this.
You know what would have solved this problem? Having this conversation earlier.
Yeah, you had asked, hey, are you going to turn to a Shrike and try to bite my penis off with your vagina teeth? Maybe that could have been a problem. He would have avoided this. Who knows?
She seemed to be willing to give him answers before.
Well, maybe she's just saying you have questions. I'm not going to answer them, but you have them.
Yeah, it could have just been a statement of fact.
Yeah. Anyway, 2 days later, he's picked up by the Hyperion Self-Defense Force, unconscious, 20 kilometers away from the dead city of poets. When he comes to a few days later, Kassad swears he remembers nothing about the last couple of days. Like, what happened?
I absolutely do not remember having sex with Shrike Jr.
Well, not Shrike Jr., like, transforming Shrike? Maybe she, like, traded places with the Shrike for a brief moment? Who knows?
Mrs. Shrike? Miss Shrike?
Let's not gender them. The Shrike is all genders, Danielle.
I figured they were.
All hail the Shrike. When he returns to the WorldWeb, he resigns his commission, and he spends some time arguing for disarmament on the All-Thing net. But it's too late, as the Ouster attack on Brezia has pushed the hegemony towards interstellar war. Kassad drops out of the public eye and remains inconspicuous for 16 years before embarking on the pilgrimage. The end of his story.
Wow. I'm not going to be able to remember any of that.
Good luck. So after finishing his story, Father Hoyt and Bron Lamia are reasonably confused about the whole time tombs moving backwards in time and the fact that his past is Moneta's future, and so like they're traveling in opposite directions through time.
Okay.
So, like, that's what she meant. Like, she's traveling backwards in time, and he's traveling forwards in time, so his past is her future.
Mm-hmm.
And no other explanation is given about that. He's just like, yep, that's what they said. That's what's happening. And then the consul asked Kassad, since he saw the Shrike's infamous killing tree, and that since the tree is also moving backwards in time from the future with the time tombs and the Shrike and everything, did he see any of them, meaning the pilgrims, impaled on the tree when he saw it? Kassad says...
Like, oh yeah, I was checking out to see who was impaled on that. I was curious.
Well, Kassad says he did recognize some of them as people who were impaled on the tree, but refuses to divulge who he saw on it.
Doesn't want to change the path of future time?
Nope, he just refuses to talk about it. Like, nope, I'm just not going to tell you. And then just as he's about to leave, Hoyt asks Kassad if he thinks that the Shrike or Moneta, or if they're the same person, whatever, want to use Kassad to start this interstellar war he foresaw during his sex with Moneta. Kassad says he thinks they do, and that he doesn't plan to petition the Shrike for anything on the pilgrimage like the others do, like his tradition, but rather, when he meets them, he plans to kill them. The end of the chapter.
So the Shrike's moving backwards, he was moving forward, but he's going to meet him again. I don't understand how Shrike works for time travel.
I don't know, Danielle. Again, very weird time travel in this book, but the idea is if they're traveling backwards in time, you're traveling forwards in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can meet them multiple times. It'll just be like, oh, your past meetings with the Shrike are their future meetings with you. Like, it's non-linear time. It's like the past has happened, your past.
Right.
So that's the time travel, apparently, how this book works.
Having little sexy times with the Shrike.
Maybe. I'm not really sure if Moneta was a Shrike or not. It's very unclear what's going on, but it's definitely kind of a Shrike-like creature for a while there.
Are there more than one Shrike? Are there like a whole population of Shrike?
I don't know, Danielle. We only ever see this one so far.
And maybe another.
And maybe Manita, but she's not a Shrike all the time. She's only a Shrike when having sex with Kassad.
She's like future version of a Shrike. Or pre-version of a Shrike.
I don't know. I mean, maybe she's traveling backwards in time with the Shrike as like his friend. Maybe it's like went on a road trip together through time.
Blasting their tunes in their non-spacefaring tree.
It's just a regular metal tree with people impaled on it.
As
it's not very complicated.
Periodically through life.
That appears and disappears, apparently on a whim, through the anti-entropic fields of the time tides around the time tombs.
Just like that. Everybody got
time
that clear?
this,
Listeners,
that.
are we on board for episode 3 of Sam's saga in 2 weeks? Is everybody, we're good? Everybody got it?
Speaking of that, Danielle, next time, do you want to know what the next Pilgrim story will be?
Do I have a choice?
I mean, I could not tell you, but it's more fun if you guess.
Who is it?
It's the Poet's Tale, Hyperion Cantos. From the poet Martin Silenus.
Was there a poet?
Martin Silenus, famously a poet.
And he lived on, did he live on the poet planet?
The City of Poets?
City of Poets?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he did.
Before it was destroyed or whatever? I don't remember what happened to the City of Poets, I'll be honest.
We don't know what happened to the City of Poets, and yeah, it's not clear. We don't know yet.
Are we going to find out when he talked?
Maybe. We certainly haven't found out a lot of other things other people have talked.
I don't know what's going to happen. He's going to tell us poems.
There's going to be a lot of poetry, Danielle. I'm going to skip most of it because it's mostly going to be Keats, and it's great. But also, I'm sorry, I'm not a poet. I'm not going to be here to recite poetry for you. I'm sure they're wonderful poems, but we don't have time for that. I barely had time to talk about the plot.
What plot?
The plot of Kassad meeting a woman in a simulation that turns out to be traveling backwards in time and is a sexy lover that he meets and also is trying to use him to start an interstellar war as part of serving the Pain Lord, who is the Shrike, who she may also be, kind of.
Yeah, so next time on Book Retorts, when Sam does this, we're just
was that not clear, Danielle?
We're just going to recap.
Part of that was unclear.
We're going to recap that little 20 seconds that he just said. Instead of me trying to remember any of that, we'll just recap Sam.
No, you're going to do it all on your own like you always do, Danielle. You're going to do a wonderful job.
Oh, no.
This is probably the horniest of the stories, I think.
I mean, they do have sex like 15 times.
Right, and literally with the spikes. I was making a double entendre. Thank you. But I'm not sure if it's the weirdest or most convoluted. I think Martin Silenus is kind of like the most long-winded one and like most convoluted one. And Saul Weintraub's is much weirder. It is very weird.
Looking forward to it.
We're definitely ramping up here.
We're a third of our way through our stories here.
Yeah.
Our Canterbury Tales.
I'm not sure. Again, I don't remember how many we get through or not, but it's going to be a few.
Possibly 6.
Possibly 6 or 7, because there are 7 pilgrims.
There are, but you said one didn't have a story.
I think that's true, but I don't remember if they get their story maybe in the next book or not.
Okay, well, we'll find out eventually on Book Retorts.
Until then, if you want to share more vocabulary words with Danielle, you can tweet at her all your favorite obscure words.
Just throw some words at me, everybody.
Please tweet them out with no context.
Apparently, I have no vocabulary.
You have a great vocabulary, but let's expand it. Let's put Twitter to good work by giving you new words, just tweet her words, no context. Don't even include them in a sentence. Just tweet a random word at her and let her figure it out, throw her in the deep end, learn by doing.
And I may or may not remember this conversation when you do that, so that should be fun.
That's my favorite part. So if you want to send those vocabulary words to us, you can do so at bookretorts.com.
You can also tweet, Instagram, or Facebook us at Book Retorts.
And if you like what we do and want to support us telling you weird stories like this, you can do so at patreon.com/bookretorts.
Patreon! Book Retorts.
That was very unenthusiastic, kind of like in sadder as you go, Danielle.
I was trying to dissipate it, so I just had to say Patreon.
Well, you dug your own grave there.
I did.
Until next time, I guess be very careful for Shrike transformations when you're making love to your partner.
Yes, please don't tell us if that happens.
Yes, but just be safe out there, people. Until then, bye.
Take care, everybody.
I like how you're like that people would support, would oppose a war against the Ousters because of brutality. That I don't cotton to.
It's not that I disbelieved that would be a thing. I was just mad about it. There's a difference.
Okay. All right. Lower clear. Like, I don't disagree. I'm saying, yeah, no, that is definitely a thing.
Like, it was just annoying.
It's annoying because it's too real.
Yeah, I don't like it.